A man, Johann, was crushed by falling rock, suffering a brain-shattering blow deep in Germany's cave, more than 3,000 feet underground. His life hung by a thread. For 11 days, hundreds of European rescuers battled in a frigid abyss. Can hope defy the depths? This is the true story of the Riesending rescue. In June 2014, a 5-person expedition stood at the entrance of Riesending, Germany's deepest cave system. The group was led by Johann, age 52. He was a veteran physicist who had helped survey this system since its earliest days. Alongside him were Ulrich Meyer, Thomas Mattholm, Florian Schwarz, and Rainer Bornschlegel. All of them were experienced cave explorers. Their objective was to expand the map of the cave's deepest sections. At midday on June 7th, the team began their descent. The entrance opened into a vertical shaft about 130 feet deep. They descended using single rope technique. At around 300 feet, they reached Hum-180, a vertical drop nearly 600 feet high and about 30 feet across. One by one, they rappelled to the bottom. Below that was a slope of loose rock over 1,000 feet long. Crumbled debris and slick surfaces made each step dangerous. They navigated a treacherous horizontal stretch to reach Camp 1. From there, the team dropped another 2,000 feet. Along the way were narrow fissures, underground streams, and freezing waterfalls. Inside the cave, the temperature hovered around 39 degrees. They passed Camp 2, then Camp 3, and Camp 4. After an additional 1,000 feet of horizontal travel, they finally arrived at Camp 5, the final stop of the journey. At that point, they were over 3,300 feet below the surface. Surrounded by darkness and the steady sound of flowing water, they had no idea that in just a few hours, all of Germany would be watching this cave. On June 8th, the team split into 2 groups. Westhauser, Meyer, and Mattholm continued deeper into the system. The other 2 turned off to the right branch of the maze to carry out survey work. Westhauser's group soon reached an area known as Rough Hall. The terrain there was uneven and slippery, located near the bottom of the system. The air was freezing. The darkness made visibility extremely limited. Mattholm went up first, climbing a rope ladder secured to the rock wall. Everything went smoothly. Westhauser followed. A sudden rumble broke the silence before the rock fell. A rock crashed onto his skull. His body went limp. He hung motionless, still suspended by the rope. In panic, Meyer and Mattholm scrambled to his side. They lowered him to a flat section of rock nearby. A few minutes later, Westhauser opened his eyes. One side of his face was swollen. Blood was leaking from his ear and nose. He was slurring his words. His left arm was unresponsive. Then, the seizures began. The symptoms pointed to a traumatic brain injury, facial fractures, and serious neurological damage. They reached for a distress signal, only to find the cave link gone. It was the only tool capable of transmitting a message from that depth. Its battery had failed before the expedition. The group had chosen to leave it behind. A small decision, but now it had turned a medical emergency into a full-blown disaster. Could they survive this disaster? No phone, no signal. No one on the surface knew they were in danger. Over 3,300 feet underground. Desperate, they took matters into their own hands. Meyer, the most experienced member, volunteered to climb out and get help. Mattholm stayed behind to care for Westhauser, who was still drifting in and out of consciousness. But things were worse than they expected. They had less than half a liter of water. The nearest refill point was over 90 minutes away. If Mattholm left, even briefly, Westhauser could stop breathing at any moment. The cave was cold. They had no sleeping bags, no shelter. If dehydration didn't kill him, hypothermia might within just a few hours. Mattholm gathered what was left: an emergency foil blanket, a few pieces of rope, and several rocks. He used them to build a makeshift tent, just enough to block the wind and trap a little warmth. He boiled the last of the water with a gas stove, then poured it into a bottle and placed it on Westhauser's chest, right over the heart and lungs. Slowly, the shaking stopped. His pulse steadied. His lips turned less blue. Westhauser had survived the first critical stage. But above him, Meyer was still alone, facing a 3,300-foot climb through a frigid labyrinth. Would Meyer conquer the frigid ascent or perish? Meyer retraced their original route and reached a side passage where Schwarz and Bornschlegel were mapping a side passage. After hearing what had happened, all 3 returned to Camp 5 to gather extra supplies. Schwarz bravely ventured back alone. He carried blankets, food, and water back to Westhauser's position to resupply the shelter. Meanwhile, Meyer and Bornschlegel began the long climb out. For 12 hours straight, they moved without rest. When they finally reached the surface, they called the emergency number, 112, but the local rescue teams weren't equipped for this. The cave was too deep, the terrain too complex. An international distress call was sent across Europe. The largest cross-border cave rescue operation in European history had just begun. Could this rescue defy the odds? Rescue teams from 5 countries, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, and Croatia, arrived at the site. More than 700 people were mobilized. 2 doctors from Italy were the first to reach Westhauser's location. His condition was stabilized. On June 13th, the extraction phase officially began. The first objective was to move Westhauser from Rough Hall back to Camp 5. The Italian team handled this section. But between Rough Hall and Camp 5 was a narrow crawlway over 300 feet long. To pass the stretcher through, rescuers lay down in a line and used their own bodies as supports. The stretcher was slid across, inch by inch, with absolute precision. At times, Westhauser drifted in and out of consciousness. To ensure safety during the transfer, doctors administered sedatives. After 10 hours, they reached Camp 5. There, Westhauser was handed off to the Austrian team. The route from Camp 5 to Camp 4 was relatively level. It took about 6 hours to complete. But from Camp 4 upward, the cave turned vertical. The route became a series of shafts, waterfalls, and narrow chutes. A stretcher hauling system, measured down to the inch, was set into motion. One team moved ahead, drilling anchor points into the rock and installing fixed pulleys. A second team followed, pulling the stretcher by hand along guide ropes. A third team stayed alongside the stretcher, keeping it level and preventing it from hitting the cave walls. After each short pull, the lead team advanced to place the next anchor. Bit by bit, they created a chain of pull stations, stable, continuous, and coordinated. In some sections, waterfalls poured straight from the cave ceiling. They used tarps, raincoats, and their own bodies to shield Westhauser from the cold. Any drop in body temperature could become critical again. By the early hours of June 19th, after 3 full days of non-stop movement, the stretcher reached the entrance of the cave. 700 people stood silently in 2 lines. They passed the final length of rope, hand to hand. After 264 hours underground, Westhauser was finally brought to the surface. A helicopter waited nearby to transport him to the hospital. After the incident, the Riesending cave was sealed off. In 2021, Westhauser and the original team returned. They completed the final section of the cave map. The total known length was updated, from 12 miles to 14.8 miles. The entire operation was documented in a film titled Das Riesending. If you believe this story deserves to be told, share it, because somewhere out there, someone might be heading into their own Riesending. January 1st, 2000. Michael Thompson, 23, and Sarah Miller, 21, both college students, parked near the entrance of the King Blair and Queen Blair caves. While others welcomed the new millennium with fireworks and champagne, they chose to spend it underground. This cave system is one of the largest in southern Indiana, known for its maze-like passages and narrow squeezes. At 12:15 a.m., they were drinking and completely unprepared. Intoxicated and laughing, they ignored warnings from locals who knew the dangers and stepped inside. Inside the cave, Michael and Sarah encountered an experienced caving group preparing to explore Queen Blair. The group agreed to let them join, hoping to keep an eye on them. At first, they followed the familiar route, moving slowly through low ceilings, slick limestone floors, and damp, cold air. The alcohol in their system made every step harder, their balance unsteady, and their memory unreliable. Around 2:10 a.m., as the main group began heading back, the beam of their flashlights reflected off the walls, then slowly faded into the distance. Instead of following, Michael and Sarah decided to go deeper on their own, confident they could remember the way. The glow of the others' lights grew smaller, and then vanished completely, leaving them alone in the twisting dark. The main group exited the cave without realizing the two had stayed behind. Michael and Sarah moved deeper into the twisting tunnels, still laughing at first, unaware they were leaving the way back behind. When they finally turned to head out, the alcohol had dulled their reflexes and clouded their sense of direction. Their steps wavered. They stopped to rest and fell asleep in the cold darkness. Waking to a dim flashlight and dying batteries, they realized they were lost. Confusion turned to fear. The laughter was gone, replaced by silence and the echo of their footsteps. Thirst came quickly. With no water, they drank the remaining vodka, worsening their dehydration and fogging their minds. When that ran out, they drank cave water, risking contamination. The cold closed in. In desperation, they burned clothes for light and warmth, but the fire consumed oxygen and released toxic gases, leaving them coughing and dizzy. By midday, locals noticed the same car still parked by the cave entrance. More than 12 hours had passed since Michael and Sarah went inside. Concerned, they called in the cave rescue team. At 1 p.m., rescuers entered the cave, guided by people familiar with the passages. The smell of smoke grew stronger, and faint coughing echoed through the darkness. By 1:30 p.m., they found the two on a sloping section of the cave. Both were severely dehydrated, their flashlight nearly dead, and the air around them was thick with toxic smoke. The rescuers moved quickly, bringing them to the surface before the fumes could claim their lives. From there, they were rushed to the hospital. Michael and Sarah survived, but their story is a stark warning. Alcohol dulls judgment and destroys your sense of direction, both of which are vital for survival underground. Fire in an enclosed space is more dangerous than the cold, as it steals oxygen and fills the air with deadly gases. Their rescue was not the result of skill or preparation, but pure luck, made possible only by the watchful eyes of locals and the quick action of rescuers. So, if someone invites you into a cave on a night like this, would you still go?